Okay, so let's see here. Wow, lots of you chiming in that you do have thyroid issues. We got folks from all over the globe: Washington, Milwaukee, Boston, Vancouver, Canada, the UK. Let's see here. Let's dive into some questions. Okay, what supplements are good for preventing metabolic alkalosis? You don't really need supplements to prevent metabolic alkalosis. You just need the right food. If you're really trying to prevent, well, first of all, if you're saying metabolic alkalosis, that's not or lower pH, it's actually not accurate. Metabolic alkalosis would be a higher pH. Metabolic acidosis would be a lower pH. So maybe reword your question. I can get an answer for you. Let's see here. Is autoimmune really just a food and environmental sensitivity? No, there's 4 triggers for autoimmune disease I mentioned earlier. So trigger number 1 is food. So in that regard, yeah, it's big time food. Trigger number 2 are chemical exposures. Trigger number 3 is microbial imbalance. And trigger number 4 is nutritional deficit. Now we can throw in a 5th trigger, which is stress that doesn't go away, or stress that's not mitigated or relegated properly, as a 5th trigger. But those 4 are the 4 primary, what we call primary chemical triggers for autoimmunity. And yes, it is that simple. Unfortunately, again, most doctors won't even entertain measuring those things. They'll just simply put you on medication for the rest of your life and tell you to accept it as your fate. And I would just say question and challenge that fate, because it doesn't make sense to accept something that doesn't get properly investigated. Love this. Got my TPO down. TPO is thyroid peroxidase. It's a type of thyroid antibody. From more than 1,000 down to 117. Got my TSH optimized, but my low free T3 and free T4 have not budged despite all the positive changes: diet, subs, lifestyle, everything. Any ideas other than meds? Yeah, test. If you haven't done the testing for these different things, you can take supplements. But again, if you're not objectifying whether or not these nutrient levels are low, you may never get to optimal T4 or T3, because the supplements you're using may not be high enough doses, may not be strong enough, may not be absorbing very well. So a lot of those things will play a role and play a factor in it. So if you're just kind of doing over-the-counter supplementation, my advice to you would be ask your doctor to test you more specifically for these different nutrients. Okay, Angeline, I have a thyroid nodule 5 centimeters on the left side. How to shrink it? Doctor wants to take my thyroid out while biopsy was benign, meaning non-cancerous. I am not ready for surgery. Please help. Look, Angeline, I can't give you medical advice on whether you should or shouldn't follow that doctor's advice, but I could say that sounds, in my opinion, like it's a pretty aggressive recommendation. If they're wanting to remove it and it's benign and you haven't tried this approach, again, I would get with that doctor and have them measure all of these different components. If you're not already on a gluten-free diet, if you haven't had a good food allergy panel measuring the different food sensitivities that you might have, like those are all things that I would suggest that you do right away. I mean, the first thing that you could do is pick up a copy of No Grain, No Pain and just follow the phase 1 and phase 2 diet and do that for 30 days. And if you're not already following a gluten-free diet, you might see some reduction in the size of that goiter. It wouldn't surprise me just in 30 days to see some improvements. Let's see. Yeah, so somebody says, I actually did work on the runway. So that jet fuel being a very big reality for you, then yeah, I mean, I definitely consider that to be a big problem. Let's see. What lab offers the best self-order blood or stool food sensitivity test? To my knowledge, any of the ones that you can self-order are not all that great. I don't really recommend that you spend the money on them. My advice would be get with a good functional medicine practitioner and get guidance in that way, because the testing is only as good as the lab or the methodology of the lab. And so if you get the right test, like let's say you go to your doctor and he orders a vitamin B12 test, but if he uses a serum test, that's to talk about all the different lab testing involved with this is too onerous of a conversation to have tonight. But again, giving you one example, B12 serum can come back, oftentimes it comes back false normal, or even in some cases false high, even though it's actually low. And so the wrong test could lead you down the wrong road really quickly. So don't recommend guessing at it. Recommend getting professional help in that regard if you're struggling. Which teas contain fluoride? All teas that are green, black, or white teas. So if it comes from your traditional black tea leaf, which white tea does, green tea does, then it could potentially contain fluoride. The reason why a lot of teas contain fluoride is because tea is really good at pulling fluoride out of the soil. So the older the tea leaf, the stronger the levels of fluoride within the tea. Now there's a company that I recommend that produces tea from very early leaf. So if you're a big fan of drinking tea, maybe we could pop that link up in the feed for you on the company that we recommend that people, if you're going to buy tea, use this tea. Let's see here. Lost half my hair, 6mm nodule, extremely dry skin. How to reverse these issues? Again, I'll just reiterate what I've already said. You can start, if you're at home doing it on your own, you can start with no grain, no pain, phase 1, phase 2 diets. It gets you through 30 days, and you can see if there's any results in that way. But my advice, if you've got a thyroid issue and your doctor hasn't told you why, there's a strong likelihood that you are gluten sensitive. That's just been my experience with people. Gluten sensitivity, one of the predominant causes that I see of thyroid disruption or thyroid dysfunction. Beyond these other chemicals. But again, testing to see what it is that's causing your thyroid condition versus guessing or just throwing some supplements at it and hoping that it works well enough to give you some type of improvement. Let's see, Karen says, I have MS, don't use any dairy or gluten, collagen comes from dairy. Will that affect me like dairy, which gives me brain fog? It might. I would be cautious about, that's weird that you're taking a collagen that comes from dairy. I've not seen that on the market. Most collagens come from either beef, fish, or chicken in my analysis. So you might just recheck that. It's pretty easy to get collagen from other sources. I have a product called Ultra Collagen with no dairy that you might want to try if you can't find one without dairy. How can we tell if it's autoimmune? Yeah, that's the one question I didn't answer. It's a great question, Lisa. So here's the caveat. This is a blood test that you can have done. It's called a TPO. So TPO, and any doctor can order this blood test. It's not a special test. TPO stands for thyroid peroxidase, or thyroid peroxidase. It's a type of antibody. Another test is called an antithyroglobulin antibody test. So these two will tell you if you have an autoimmune issue. Now, there's a caveat to this. You can come back and not have positive antibodies, but still have autoimmune thyroid disease. Although oftentimes the antibodies are positive, you can come back with what's known as a false result. So another thing that some doctors will run is they'll do an ultrasound on your thyroid, and they'll look for signs of nodular inflammation in the thyroid, which can also be indicative of an autoimmune thyroid problem. So when you combine these three things together, you get the best, most accurate picture as to whether or not what you're struggling with is an actual autoimmune problem versus just purely a nutritional problem. So TPO, antithyroglobulin, and an ultrasound of the thyroid can be very helpful for a doctor in helping you get a diagnosis of Hashimoto's. Let's see here. Iodine makes my Hashis flare up. Maybe a smaller dose is okay. So iodine is one of those, it can be tricky. So first and foremost, I don't recommend that people take higher doses of iodine, even though you need iodine to make the four, right, to make the 4 molecules of iodine go into forming your thyroid hormone. if you have high levels of antibodies, so again, if your TPO is greater than 100, so if it's 100 or higher, I don't recommend just blatantly taking iodine without knowing whether or not you need iodine. And with your thyroglobulin antibodies, if you're really 20 or greater, I don't recommend it there either. Now, that being said, one of the things you can do is you can actually test your iodine levels to see whether or not they're low. And the best way to assess iodine is something called a loading test, a pre and post load. So doing a loading test for iodine, asking your doctor to run a loading test for iodine can become very important. Now, the other thing here is when you're testing iodine, you should also test the halides as a grouping. So getting your bromine tested, getting your fluoride tested is also important, because you may have normal iodine, but if you have high levels of fluoride, then how do we get rid of the fluoride? Well, one, we quit taking it in. We don't drink the teas that are contaminated with fluoride. We don't use the fluoridated toothpaste or mouthwash. We filter the fluoride from our water. But sometimes that fluoride continues to be persistent and hangs around anyway. And so sometimes taking iodine is how we actually detoxify from too much fluoride. But if you're finding that, again, that taking iodine flares up your Hashimoto's, it's going to be one of those things where you want to control your diet to get these antibody levels down well enough before you make an attempt at using higher doses of iodine. That's a common thing that is, one of those clinically relevant things. I don't recommend higher doses of iodine unless you're being managed, unless you've got a good doctor managing that iodine, because there's too many nuances, and there can be some symptoms or situations that can occur that make you think you're allergic to iodine, or make you think that you're actually reacting to iodine, and it may not even actually be that. And so working with somebody who's experienced can become important if you're trying to really truly get this thing navigated. Okay, let's see here. How long does it take to bring down antibodies, to bring gluten antibody levels down? My gliadin antibodies, anti-gliadin antibodies, IgA level is over 320, and my gliadin globulin antibody IG, that's got to be a misquote there, an IgB, because you don't make IgB antibodies. You might mean IgG, is over 160. It doesn't take a year. In my experience, it takes, if you're really solid with your diet, you're going to see dramatic drops in gluten antibodies within 2 to 4 months. Now, it takes at least 2 months to get the gluten out of your system completely, but that doesn't mean we won't start seeing the antibody levels start to drop. So again, it can happen within a matter of months. It doesn't take a year. And so again, you can ask your doctor to remeasure them as you're going through the process of diet change. There is a rumor iodine is not recommended for Hashi. Again, rumors and speculation and experience. Some people don't do well with iodine that have Hashis. That's true sometimes. It's just not, we can't make a blanket statement and say everyone with Hashis should not take iodine, because iodine is an essential nutrient, and saying that without testing for whether or not your levels are adequate is, in my opinion, it's shortchanging you, and it could lead to greater degrees of problems. I've seen low levels of iodine perpetuate thyroid disease, not necessarily flare somebody up, but actually perpetuate the illness. Let's see here. I love this. Lori says, diagnosed, changed my life, changed my diet, no gluten, no dairy, no caffeine, no corn, no processed sugar. TSH went from 12 down to 3.5 without medication. Love it. Thanks for sharing, Lori. I read sardines are rich in vitamin D and omega-3. Yes, they are. Sardines are a great source of both of those. What's the danger? Angeline wants to know, what's the danger of having high selenium without supplementing or eating Brazil nuts? My blood selenium levels are always high. You might be being exposed to some type of chemical-based selenium, like a selenium sulfide. Oftentimes the anti-dandruff shampoos, if you've got an issue with your skin, you might be absorbing too much in that way, and that could be potentiating that. But I would look for chemical derivatives that also contain selenium that might be driving up your selenium levels too high, especially if you're not supplementing or just eating a massive quantity of something like chard. Red chard contains a lot of selenium, and Brazil nuts can contain a lot of selenium, and it doesn't take much to create an elevation. Jennifer wants to know, how can I increase iodine without flaring my Hashimoto's? Again, if you're trying to increase your iodine, one is to start on really, really, really low amounts and just kind of slowly work it your way in. But again, the best advice I could say would be get with your doc and have your levels measured and see whether or not that's actually something you need to do. Could I possibly be drinking too much tea? I take it for health, ashwagandha, astragalus, lemon balm, and pau d'arco. You know, yeah, you can drink too much of anything, but that type of tea, if you're talking about ashwagandha, astragalus, lemon balm, that's not where you're going to get exposure to the fluoride. The tea that you're going to get exposure to fluoride with is going to be more, again, your green tea, your white tea, and your black teas. Let's see here. If you are low on iron, does the body prioritize it for the production of red blood cells first and other other iron-dependent processes suffer, or is it different for every person? In my experience, Kelly, it's different for different people. You know, I've seen cases where the body does prioritize for iron production, where we'll see, we'll measure and we'll know their iron is low, but they are producing adequate quantities of hemoglobin. So again, a lot of doctors will diagnose iron deficiency by whether or not you make adequate hemoglobin and whether or not your hematocrit is low. But I've seen cases where a person's still iron deficient even though they have normal hemoglobin and hematocrit and normal mean corpuscular volume. So yeah, it can, but it doesn't always. Elizabeth wants to know, is the problem really gluten or could it be phytic acid? So phytic acid is a nutrient in plants that prevents mineral absorption. So in that regard, yeah, I mean, too much phytic acid can cause mineral problems. But it is gluten. So the question was, is it gluten or is it phytic acid? It is gluten. The studies are very, very clear on gluten inducing autoimmune thyroid antibodies. So we know it's the gluten, because phytic acid doesn't cause gluten antibodies to elevate concomitantly with thyroid antibodies. Phytic acid is more of a mineral binding agent that can prevent minerals from being properly absorbed. And of course, if we're talking about some of these minerals that I've discussed today, then could it contribute to nutritional hypothyroid? Sure, it could, but not so much autoimmune. Victoria wants to know if the antibodies are antithyroglobulin versus TPO, is there a significance to that? No, not really. You make one or the other. It's just that the antibodies are unique to where your body is forming the attack or making the attack, but is there significance? No, both of them mean that you have an autoimmune thyroid issue that has to be resolved, meaning you have to go back in with your doc and investigate what those triggers for your autoimmune disease are. Are hair tests for food intolerance is valid? No, throw them in the garbage. Don't ever buy a hair test for food intolerance. It's a ridiculous notion. Throw them in the garbage. They're not worth the report's not worth the paper it's printed on. Okay, let's see here. So Jody wants to know, what about my teeth without fluoride? Understand that your teeth, to be hard and to have good enamel, don't need fluoride. Fluoride is not an essential nutrient that your teeth need. Fluoride chemically hardens the enamel, which is why dentists like to use it. But it's actually not an essential nutrient that your body has to have to produce enamel. So you got to be very clear about that. Fluoride, in my opinion, is a very toxic substance. I just don't recommend anybody fluoridate their water. Most countries don't. I think the U.S. in the modern world is really the only country that still does water fluoridation, because we know fluoride's a neurotoxin. We know it damages brain cells. We know it creates and contributes to autoimmunity and other health issues. So if you're in that realm of belief that fluoride is somehow important for dental health, I would encourage you to dig a little bit deeper and get a little bit more educated about that. My serum iodine was 42. Again, I wouldn't recommend testing iodine or any nutrient for that matter just in pure serum, because when you use serum as a measure to determine deficiency, it can be very misleading based on your current diet. Serum is a reflection of your last meal for the most part. And remember, your nutritional status is not a reflection of your last meal. Your nutritional status is a reflection of your last 100 meals over time, compounded over time. So if you really want to get accurate, you need to have a functional assessment test done or an intracellular test done that gives you a longer window of your nutritional status, more than just the last 24 hours. I like that. Don says, I was 100% gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, felt great. Then I lost my way and started eating what I wanted to. I have Hashimoto's, but now I have severe diverticulitis. Yeah, I mean, you got to, thanks for chiming in, and maybe this episode today, Don, will be the thing that kind of pushes you back in the right direction. Remember, the cardinal rule of nutrition is you can't get healthy eating food that's not healthy. And so that may be a little bit different for different people. We can all pretty much say that sugar's not good for us. Processed sugar and processed chemicals are not good for us. Beyond that, it's pretty unique from one person to the next. But once you go on a healthy diet, you want to stay there. It's not a temporary thing. Melissa wants to know, do you have to heal your gut before taking iodine? No, you don't. Remember, the part of healing your gut is what you eat. See, a lot of doctors say heal the gut first, heal the gut first, heal the gut first. And that's fine. You want to heal the gut, but how do we heal the gut? It's part of it is what we put in our mouth. 60% of the nutrition that helps your gut heal comes directly from your food, not from the blood supply. So remember, the vast majority of nutrients that help your gut heal come from what you put in your mouth, not from your systemic blood supply. Let's see here. How can we deal with the side effects of levothyroxine, since it's not possible to function without it, but I can't bear the side effects either? Is there any natural replacement that does not need a prescription? Well, first, the biggest problem with levothyroxine contains corn. And those of you who haven't read No Grain, No Pain, and this is the first time you're hearing this, corn is a form of gluten. So if you're using levothyroxine, notice it's got corn, and it can perpetuate the problem. I've had a lot of people come to see me that were struggling in their thyroid, getting anywhere, getting ahead, breaking through their plateau, because they were getting persistent corn gluten exposure. And so when we referred them back to their docs and we said, look, ask your doctor to compound levothyroxine without the corn. So without the grain-based fillers, and that might be where you need to look at starting. If you are taking levo and you don't, again, if you're taking the regular form, it's going to have that corn in it, and that might be a big part of the problem. There are certainly other things that you can make an attempt to do, but if you're going to do them, it needs to be under supervision. You can take things like tyrosine, you can take adrenal glandulars and thyroid glandulars that can be very helpful, and for some people it's enough to where they don't need levothyroxine, but again, it needs to be managed properly before you just make the attempt to do it. Let's see here. Do you have any supplementation to maintain a healthy thyroid? Yeah, all this stuff, right? All these things are critical and important. I'd say the number one supplement you can take in all of this, just to maintain not just a healthy thyroid, but just to maintain who you are as a healthy person, is a solid multivitamin. Very good, thorough, well-formulated multivitamin will contain all of these things. It may not be that it contains all of these things in high enough amounts to overcome a deficiency, but enough to give you support on a day-to-day basis. I've got two formulations there, ultra nutrients and multi-nutrients. Both are powerhouses in terms of multivitamin, multi-mineral formulas that I would recommend anyone take just as a preventative for trying to maintain good health. Oh, great question. Cheryl wants to know, how does non-filtered water you bathe or shower with affect the thyroid. Should I filter this water as well? Yeah, you can do shower head filters. They make carbon KDF shower head filters. I certainly would recommend that you filter your shower and your bathing water as well. Or a whole house water filtration system with carbon and KDF granules to filter out a lot of the toxins, chemicals, chlorine, bromine, etc. from the water. Those are both great filters to put in place. Let's see here. So Wendy says, do you have vitamins for Hashimoto's and MTHFR? Well, MTHFR, vitamins for MTHFR, the predominant vitamin for MTHFR would just be methylated B vitamins. So like, 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, methylcobalamin, and pyridoxal 5-phosphate are 3 of the very important B vitamins necessary to help support somebody with an MTHFR mutation. And those are all part of our multivitamin formula. So if you're just looking for good support there, you know that my multivitamin formulas contain methylated versions of B vitamins. It'll support, health in Hashimoto's and MTHFR. Yeah, so if your doctor recommended NP thyroid without properly testing you, you might get a second opinion. That doesn't sound right to me. A doctor shouldn't be prescribing thyroid medication if they're not actually ascertaining whether or not you need it. Wanda wants to know, is the TSH level really that relevant when diagnosing hyperthyroidism? It is relevant, but it's a piece of the puzzle. Using only TSH to diagnose hyperthyroidism is like taking 10 pieces of a 100-piece puzzle and putting them on the table and then trying to figure out what the puzzle is and how to put those pieces together. You can put those particular pieces together, but it might be harder to see the complete picture. So it's important. It's just not comprehensive. And again, when it comes to health, we have to be comprehensive. When it comes especially to diagnoses where a doctor may be saying, hey, this is something you need to do for the rest of your life, you better get comprehensive, because otherwise you're going to be stuck on a medication that doesn't come without side effects. I see people all the time in my office. One of the side effects to too much thyroid medication is that you can have a heart attack. It can overwork your heart. So if you were told take thyroid medicine and you're not properly being monitored, measured, or tested, know that you can strain and stress your heart out. Thyroid hormone is a very, very powerful drug, and you don't want to take it lightly, and certainly I don't recommend anybody take it without having a thorough workup done. Okay. So Kathy says, my thyroid blood work came back normal, but I have a nodule. Can it be shrunk, and if so, how? Kathy, have them check your iodine. A lot of times, remember, why do we iodize salt in the United States? So this is interesting historical fact. We iodize salt in the U.S. because of nodules. Because at the turn of the century, goiters were a common problem in the U.S. because as people gravitated away from the coast, away from the East Coast, moving more inland, right, settling in more, we'll call them farm regions, or settling in more, regions without the coastal seafood where the iodine was the predominant part of, it was rich in the seafood-based diet. So people started to develop goiters in mass. This is why we have a nationwide fortification program where we add iodine to the salt. That exists because of nodules. So that if you have a nodule but your thyroid numbers look good, the very first thing I would ask your doctor to run would be to effectively assess your iodine status and your halide status to make sure that your nodule's not being caused by something so simple as an iodine deficit. There's remember, you got to understand too, a lot of people today have been told don't eat salt because it increases the risk for high blood pressure and heart disease. So a lot of people don't eat salt anymore. They don't get the iodine because they also don't eat seafood. And so if you're one of those where you've cut out regular table salt in lieu of some type of rock salt or pink salt, know that you're not really getting any great source of iodine in that salt. And if you don't eat seafood, you could run into a problem with iodine deficiency that could cause a nodule or a goiter. And this is one of the reasons why my multis have iodine in them, because so many people don't use those salts anymore for fear of the processed salt being poor for their health, that we want to give them some degree of iodine in their diet consistently enough to try to prevent the goiter from occurring. Okay, let's see here. What if you no longer have a thyroid? Is supplementation with T4 enough to restore the normal communication? I love this question, Aggie. So if you don't have a thyroid and you're using T4, you better pay close attention to everything that happens after this, right? So the iron, the selenium, the D, the A, the omega-3, super critical in order to turn that T4 that you're using prescription into that T3 and to activate that metabolism. So you probably a good thing to do would ask your doctor to be, when they're measuring and monitoring your thyroid, would be to measure and monitor these nutrients simultaneously to make sure that what you're taking. Because some doctors, when their patients have had their thyroid completely removed, will prescribe both a T4 and a T3 preparation, and so you might also have that conversation with your prescribing doc to see whether or not that's a smart choice or a good move for you as well. But either way you go, it needs to be monitored. Again, too much thyroid can be a problem. And my experience is when people start getting this part in check, when they change their diet, when they go gluten-free and they start getting these nutrients dialed in, if they're taking thyroid medicine, a lot of times what happens is now their TSH drops below 0.5. So that TSH, if it's low, remember I said it earlier, if it's high, you have a low thyroid, but if it's low, then you're taking too much thyroid, so you have a high thyroid, and that is what increases the risk of heart problems. So again, if you're on a thyroid medication, my advice would be at least every 6 months your doctor should be checking you to make sure, especially if you're changing your diet, doing the no grain, no pain diet protocol. Because I get people sometimes pay attention to these symptoms. So if you have heart palpitations, if you start developing anxiety, if you start having sweats or hot flashes, if you're having trouble getting to sleep at night, if you become a bear and you're super irritable and you have no patience, like these are all things that might mean that your thyroid medication is becoming too strong as you change your diet. And so don't think that if you're changing your diet, don't think that the change in your diet might be causing those things. If you're also on thyroid, look at that medicine first and make sure you're not getting a toxic amount. Kathy wants to know, my B12 level is very high, over 1200. Are there side effects? Not really. Serum, it's a serum level. If it's over 1200, you're having your B12 and your serum measured, and that, again, that's not a really super accurate way to measure vitamin B12. Nobody's ever died from a B12 toxicity. Nobody's ever been hospitalized or made sick by a B12 toxicity, at least not in the reported literature. That doesn't mean you can't have a problem, but it wouldn't make me suspect that you have a major issue, even if your level is that high. Let's see, Denise says, after radiation for hyperthyroid, are there special things that we can do? So if you've had your thyroid completely radiated and now you're on a medication to maintain and modulate your thyroid, you still want to, again, going back to what kind of medicine is it? Is it T4, T3 preparation? The nutritional aspect becomes very important. And remember, if you had to have your thyroid radiated because you had hyperthyroidism or Graves' disease, guess what else causes, so when we talked about gluten earlier, gluten can cause Graves' disease. Gluten can also cause Hashimoto's. It's kind of the flip side of the coin. So you can have autoimmune hyperthyroid for the same reason you can have autoimmune hypothyroid, and it's important to know that because many people, again, it's not a conversation a lot of doctors have. I can't tell you how many people I've seen that had that hyperthyroid diagnosis and they were taking very powerful medications to suppress their thyroids and not doing so well until we actually started to change their diet. That diet change is one of the most important, one of the most critical things that you can do above anything else, including supplementation. Diet comes first. Diet is more critical than anything else. All right, folks, I think we've gone well over our time tonight, so questions haven't stopped coming, but make sure you tune back in next week, and make sure you share this show with a family member. If you enjoyed what we talk about and what we teach here, help me save lives. Hashtag save 100 million lives. That's our goal at at drpeterosborne.com and glutenfreesociety.org is to get more information like this out to the masses. So also, I'm going to put up behind this video a couple of other videos. You'll see them up here in the corner. We'll put a couple of other videos up on thyroid. So those of you who still had questions, you might find some additional answers in some of these other videos on thyroid. And again, if you didn't click on that link below, I'll put that link below to the quiz that you can take to determine whether or not going gluten-free might help you with your thyroid problem. This is Dr. Osborne wishing you excellent health. We'll see you next week, same time, 6 p.m. Central Time. Have a great week. Hey, if you've got a functional medicine or health question that you'd like me to answer for you, make sure you send me an email, glutenology@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to create a video answer just for you. Have a great day.